Lay back, relax, enjoy it all. Saturday night, it's time to say no more. S&M with Tally and KRC. Come pleasure or pain, welcome to the stream.
It is not capturing the proper window. God damn it, Discord. It was captured a minute ago. Hang on, kids. Sorry, technical difficulties. Jesus. Hang on.
Oh dear.
We're here. I promise we're here.
Sort of.
I'm very, very professional. I'm very, very professional.
Can't you tell?
Yeah. Oh, for goodness sake.
It's live television, everybody.
Yeah, there's the window. Why won't you capture it? There we are. Okay. Hi. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to S&M. I'm Eve. This is Tally. Why are you muted,
Hi.
Tally? Okay.
Stand by for technical difficulty.
I was gonna say
Am I muted?
you lagged for a second there and couldn't hear anything. Okay. And with us today we have a very special guest, Scribelight.
I'm a very tiny face in a giant gray void.
You are.
Hello. I feel like I should have a very small voice. I should be back here. Hi, everybody.
Oh my goodness. So sorry about the issues, guys. We're having an issue today. Why are you bitching around about the bit rate? Kiss my ass, YouTube. I had to lower the bit rate because nothing was working, so it's still warning me about the bit rate being too low. But I didn't have any issues until I started messing around with my bit rate on OBS, and then now it's like babes, I include Scribe in that. Tailed says you're a babe.
Tailed? Oh, I'm all on Twitter.
You are on Twitter. So
no, I'm all a Twitter.
I know.
There's a difference.
I know. I was kidding.
There is a difference.
I don't know
I'm
how
not
to
quite
do
sure
it.
what it is, but there is one.
With that said, how's everyone doing today? I probably did forget to check a box somewhere or do something or send a thing out or something like that. I don't know, but you know, we're here. We're an hour late, but we're here. No, we're
And it works.
45 minutes late.
You're right on time for when you started.
Exactly. But fashionably so, because I look damn good today, and I know Tally looks damn good today, and Scribe always looks good, so.
I'm a tiny little face in a big gray void.
There's not much I can do about that either. Like, I could cover your icon up if you wanted me to, but...
No, it's fine.
Discord likes to extrapolate colors from the icon, whatever it is. So, like, if I was...
Oh, interesting.
If I was to turn off my camera here, see, it extracts mostly color from my hair in this picture. So you can see...
It does the same for me.
Right. It does much the same for you because yours has a lot of your hair in the picture, so it extrapolates a lot of the yellows and stuff from their blonde.
Of course it does. I've got a lot of hair.
Oh, well, somehow I'll just have to survive.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anywho, so, Mr. Scribelight, what have you been up to?
Well, I just watched a official TED Talk, purportedly telling me that merit is a tyranny. And it didn't do a very good job of making either that argument or any particular argument. And this was a PhD holding professor of philosophy at some college or another, and to steal a British phrase, whinging on about how apparently everyone who has a college degree is somehow an arrogant, hubris-filled jerk who looks down on anybody who doesn't have a college degree and sees some sort of like lower class mentality with people who pick up the garbage and stuff like
Wow.
that. And it's like it was very it sounded like he was projecting like I can't be the only one who thinks this way, and of course the way I'm thinking is bad, which means everybody else thinks this way and you're all bad too. But he never, just like with so many other TED and TEDx talks, they'll bring up some sort of claim or propose a problem and then never offer a solution or an alternative that makes any sense to what they're saying.
Jeez.
So that was kind of it, and we only just barely eked out a bingo, and the last square on the bingo was, I mean, I was on the fence. The chat kind of pushed me over, but only by a hair. Not to delegitimize the bingo. I'm just saying, it's one of those things, and it's entirely my own fault. But yeah, that's what I did today. Other than
if you aren't familiar, Tally, he plays bingo with like some of the buzzwords and things that they say. Like if they say certain buzzwords, if they mention feminism, if they are just talk about being toxic or whatever, they'll so he plays bingo to see which of these boxes they check throughout the video he watched.
Yeah, there are certain concepts or elements to TED and TEDx talks that over time, since I've watched so many of them, that are just very things you can anticipate, telling a anecdote about your youth that somehow feeds into your argument, or
and this is why we should change society, because I had an anecdote in my youth.
Right. Yeah. Or, I had a family experience or something, or whatever, right. Or using the phrase, toxic or privilege, or talking about microaggressions and so on. So we've winnowed it down to a pretty good card so far, I think. So I think it's not I might shuffle the squares from time to time, but I think for the time being, the content of it is going to sit for a bit.
Wow. Like
that is how I try in some way, shape, or form now to make watching TEDx is more entertaining than simply listening to me lose my mind as I try to figure out what they're saying.
I've been in the audience or watched some of your pre-recorded videos, but I've also seen a couple of your streams as well, and seen you losing your mind, because I'm sitting there losing my mind as well, and that's just.
I go into them like honestly, as much as possible, at least. I mean, with a certain, sarcastic outlook on it, but I'm honestly trying to understand what it is that they're saying, even if I ultimately am not going to agree with it. I'd rather know what I'm disagreeing with than just assume whatever. And I think especially these days, with as many things that just a couple of years ago were so on the fringe of, Tumblr and such, that are now in the mainstream. I think it's useful to at least be aware of what people are trying to use as the leverage to get things done or to push their agendas. And I also want to allow for the possibility that, depending on what kind of talk I'm listening to, I might either learn something or have my mind changed. Maybe there will come a day where somebody gives me a argument on restorative justice and they actually convince me of something. I don't know. It might happen. So we'll see.
Tally, I think you're muted.
Oh.
You are. I think you're muted locally, hon, because you're not even lighting up on Discord.
Oh no.
Check your switch. No. Are you plugged in? I don't know. She's not coming through. Like, I can hear you, Scribe, so it's not Discord. I can hear the stream can hear you. She's
got so much to say, but we can't hear her. Oh, she dropped out.
Oh. I was gonna say, it's actually kind of peaceful for once.
Oh no, don't say that.
Oh no, she's back.
Is she though?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wow, that was painful.
What did we miss? What did we miss in your silence?
You can't. The only thing you really missed was a ah!
Whoa!
A scream of frustration. Why am I frozen?
You're not frozen on my screen. Calm down.
My laptop's frozen.
Oh,
Live TV.
like you're fine. We can see you, and you're still coming through, so your camera still works.
That's right then. For some
No,
reason, Discord is not responding.
that was the most.
It's doing weird shit.
That was the most peace anyone has had on this show, Scribe. I hope you enjoyed it because it's over now.
Oh, okay.
So, Skull says, "How rudy?" About it. It's not rude. Tally will admit that she talks a lot.
I do. You're not wrong.
On a talk show? Dear God in heaven.
Tally talks over me a lot too,
Yeah,
and
I know, right?
we butt
Getting
heads
talked over? What's that like?
If you're, she's just. I'm so cute and adorable. Don't you love me anyway? Just despite my flaws? Yes, we do, but goddamn.
Hey, everyone's got flaws.
You know,
Let's just face it. At least I'm able to admit to mine.
I'm gonna be honest, I highly suspect that's why Monkey didn't want to have you back on MITAM, or why he's not invited us back on again. Because you talked a lot when we were on there that time.
I talk you know what? I mostly talk a lot when I get overexcited. And I like Monkey, so I may have got a little overexcited.
Yeah. But with that said, all insulting of Talia aside,
Uh-huh.
how
For
is
the
everyone?
moment.
Yeah, how is it? Yeah, for the moment. How is everyone in chat doing? Everybody's starting to file in. It
Hi,
looks
chat.
like.
I recognize so many names. It's almost like I called out hellos to them just a little while ago.
Yeah, you would know most of the names in here. Still a few of them come over from like my my Twitch streams and stuff like that, or like from the side quest community, which Tally is a big part of. Who strangely don't know who about half of y'all are. Like they don't know who. Like I mentioned Monkey's name, and they'll go who, and I'll be like, oh shit, what about Scribelight? Who? Okay, well
Yeah.
that's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, we are a very sort of small community, but still sort of insulated from each other on sort of genre levels, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. It's really strange when they would watch somebody like Magog, but they don't necessarily know people from other communities. Like a lot of people do, or they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of them, but I don't really know who they are or anything about them. So it's fascinating to me to see how some of these communities like this can exist adjacent to one another, but not interact as much.
Yeah. No, it's just small world kind of thing. We overlap in audience, not necessarily in personalities, or vice versa, depending. And I tried to stretch out a little bit with at least my sort of quasi circle. Like I had Matt Orchard on, who does reality crime videos now, and of course out of the blue had Kurt Metzger come along. And yeah, no, he so Matt Orchard, and anybody who doesn't know about this, so there's a true crime channel out there that's been out there for a couple of years now called Jim Can't Swim, and he does these excellent like long form documentaries on particular cases using interrogation footage and other research and archival stuff to tell the stories of different crimes and serial killers and things like that.
Is he the one that does that breaks down the body language of serial killers when they're in interrogation?
No, that is, well, at least the one that I watch is what was it, Shaker, or what is his last name? Derek Shaker or something. Anyway, no, Jim Can't Swim. He does.
I don't know who that is, but I've watched one a while ago, and he did a breakdown of the guy that killed his pregnant wife and his 2 daughters.
Yeah, Chris Watts.
Yeah, him. Did a breakdown of like leading up to him being a suspect, and
well, the
body cam of the police when they initially arrived at the scene, and his interrogation footage and all that sort of thing.
The guy who did, well, at least the most watched series on body language that I know regarding Chris Watts was Derek Van Schaik. That was his name, Derek Van Schaik. And he did 3 or 4 different videos looking at his TV interviews, the body cam stuff, and then the interrogation. But Jim can't swim. He does.
I don't know if, like, when you watch the body cam footage of that guy that killed his family, like, when the police officer said that he needs a detective over, I've never seen someone shit themselves so quickly.
Yeah, no, the Chris Watts case is amazing just because there's so many times you've heard stories of the police went to the house and they talked to everybody, and then later on it was found that one of the adults involved did something terrible. I don't think there's been a case that's been recorded from the very beginning of the investigation, and you actually get to watch the eventual murderer try to put on the act from the get-go, and then see through the progression of not only the moment the investigation starts, where the police officer arrives at the house before he even gets there, his first encounter with police, all the way through to where he talks to the media, all the way through the interrogation, and all the way through to confession. It's so well documented in video and audio.
He did an interview in prison where he
Yes.
talked about not only why he did it, but how he did it and all that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, he was arrested. He confessed and was arrested before all the questions the investigators wanted to ask would be asked.
Initially, when he admitted to it, he tried to claim that he only killed his wife because she killed the two little girls. But then it turns out that the two little girls were still alive when he put them in the car that morning and took them to the place where he killed them. He killed one of them, dumped her in a tank, while the other one was watching him kill her sister and dump her in a tank. And then he did the same to the other one. And I could only watch half of his confession when he was admitting to how he actually did it in prison. And then it made me feel physically sick, and I had to turn it off because I just couldn't deal with. I don't understand that kind of mentality in a parent.
Yeah, I mean, he was a narcissist.
Yeah, he was a narcissist. But his thing, it really messed with me on a maternal level.
I don't actually know the case y'all are talking about, so I don't have much to say on it. But
Chris Watts.
Yeah,
Chris Watts was 2018, I think it was. That was big news for a while because it was, like I say, it was so well documented, recorded, and he went on TV asking for his wife to come back and everything, and he'd already he'd murdered them, and just the fact that he wiped out his entire family because he was having an affair with this coworker, and it was all sort of almost so dramatic and horrific that it was sort of made for TV because he had the perfect life by all outward appearances. I mean, his wife was a successful marketer of this sort of it was sort of like one of those self-help products kind of deals. And he was like in ridiculously good shape, and they had this big house in Colorado, and they had two beautiful kids.
That house was amazing. Yeah. The police arrived when they did the body cam footage of them walking through the house. It's like, I want that house.
Yeah. Well, they were about to not be able to afford it because of the third kid that was coming. And that was apparently one of the considerations in his mind, is that he got himself stuck in a situation where his wife kept having kids and he couldn't afford it, and he wanted to be with his girlfriend, and he was just a narcissistic psychopath. So he just ended up murdering his wife, driving his wife's dead body out to an oil field, and then burying her body, and then strangling his two daughters and dumping them in oil tanks, and then trying to go about his day as though everything was fine and try to lie to everybody like, oh yeah, my wife just left. She just left with the kids. I don't know. I guess she's just gone forever. Pardon me while I go off and be with my girlfriend.
Oh, goodness gracious. That's awful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just sitting here reading some on it. It's like,
if he was having these difficulties because his wife kept getting pregnant, there are other ways of dealing with it, like castration. Castration, maybe.
Damn it, Tally. That Chris Watts strangled his pregnant wife, 34, killing her and their unborn son Nico in their bed in their home in Frederick, Colorado, in August 2018, when she confronted him about an affair with a coworker. He then drove their daughters Bella 4 and Celeste 3 with their mom's corpse in the car to a remote oil field where he worked and smothered them with a New York Yankee blanket before squeezing their bodies into an oil tank. Jesus Christ.
The oldest of the two girls, he pushed her through a hole that was so small that all up one side, like he almost scraped off her skin.
He was.
We got dark quick.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. Well, anyway, that was all from me talking about. There's the channel Jim Can't Swim, who does documentaries on such things, and then this guy Matt Orchard got inspired by that channel, started making his own stuff, and I found him just sort of by chance, and his stuff is really good. It's at least on par, in my opinion, with the Jim Can't Swim stuff. And I was just like, I got to talk to this guy. I really want to promote this guy because I am a big believer in, and I say it on the Lords of the Night all the time, if there's a content creator you like, whatever it is, let people know, because more likely than not, YouTube's not telling anybody, and the more people that you tell about it, the more likelihood they'll get some attention. And I started just tweeting out this guy's video and tagging him in him and just saying, everybody take a look at this. If you like Jim Can't Swim, watch this. And, he was very, very grateful for the attention. I was like, hey, you know what? I should talk to this guy. I was like, hey, you want to come on my once in a blue moon interview show? And so interviewing him and just making contacts with interesting people from outside my realm, like the lady who's doing the independent cyberpunk film / TV series that she wants to produce, and she created a sort of a pitch trailer for it.
Remember that
and
one.
I had her on. Yeah, I had her on before they got the funding figured out, and then I had her on after they'd released the trailer. I was telling who was I talking to about this the other day? Oh, just the small. Oh, I was talking to Kurt Metzger, the comedian, and just how social media has. And I know this isn't any great revelation to anybody, but the more that I've done this, I guess it just sunk in. Just how easy it is to communicate with people that in the olden days there would be there's no way you could ever talk to this person or have a direct conversation with this person. Whereas today it's like, hey, I'm just gonna randomly tweet this guy and say, hey,
go back 20 years, there would have been no way that I would be able to be sitting here having this conversation with you.
What?
Is that not part of the conversation? I'm sorry.
No, I was just. Oh, you're talking about with technology.
Is that not what you were talking about?
No, it was I came back to the conversation. I was looking at chat, and then I came back to the conversation, and you were like, and I was like, wait, what? I'm confused. Sorry, please continue what you're saying.
Subscribe?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, I've lost my train of thought.
You were saying that no way you'd be able to speak to certain individuals.
Yeah.
Well, just like I have nothing in common with Matt Orchard, right? I mean, he does documentaries. He's in a different country. We don't even operate in the same genre or anything. But I was just, I just sent him a tweet and just like, hey, you don't know me, but I'd love to talk to you and do this thing and this stuff and help promote your channel. Because I've been and I still am a small YouTuber, and you're starting out and you do some great work and that kind of thing. Or just like from the opposite end of the sort of, I guess, fame spectrum or celebrity, an Emmy-winning comic writer tweets me and is just like, I want to have you on my show. Like, okay. And just all these weird sort of opportunities and things that happen as a result of this. And it's so when I was just thinking about this the other day, I was talking to my sister about it, because I was still kind of bewildered that I was on someone else's show, like someone I didn't even know. It wasn't even like I was on a show with somebody who's in our little community or something, just a complete outsider, right? And I was talking to her about it, and I said, I never would have thought 4 years ago that I'd have at different times Undoomed on my channel. It was just so amazing. And my sister's like, who's Undoomed? I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You're not a YouTuber. And I have to explain to her, it's like, yeah, before I started doing this, Undoomed was like rock star level sort of popularity guy thing and stuff. And then he like shows up on our show. And then one time he invited me on his show, and I was just like, and then I'm rubbing elbows with other people on that show that I really like watching, like Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge, and just it's so, because like not that long ago I was just a viewer. I was just a guy who was watching like Sargon and Skeptor and Hagbard Celine and Jim and the Internet Aristocrat and all these guys, just being, just a guy watching the videos. That's all it was. And watching these people on a TV screen with their their avatars and their big personalities and everything. And it was like, because my mentality is still in the TV days where you watch a show and it's like, oh, that's something official. That's something big and whatever else. Still at that point, I didn't quite get that YouTube is relatively accessible to everybody. And then to eventually like talk directly with people who you sort of hold up as not necessarily role models, but at least sort of like celebrities in your own little universe kind of thing. And it just feel completely natural, and just, you're just meeting, they're just regular people just like you. And I understand that's sort of common sense, but there is that separation of notoriety from someone who either isn't or doesn't feel that way themselves. That sort of, I guess, elevates them to some level sort of in your own imagination where they don't necessarily exist, but they exist for you. And so, yeah, it's just been a very bizarre but welcome experience these last couple of years, especially to just, and I'm starting to babble. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say I've had the exact same experience.
Oh
with
no,
YouTube
it's fine. It's fine.
Because we, I think
up
Tally,
until 6 months ago,
I think you have some lag, honey, because you start responding to something like 10 seconds after I do.
I probably do.
You might want to stop.
Yeah, I
Why
probably do have some lag, but
she's always across the UK. That's the thing. It's going across an ocean.
Yeah, why don't you try like restarting? And
also, you have to bear in mind my laptop is a potato.
Tally, why don't you try restarting and see if that fixes your issue?
What, my whole system?
Yeah. Because you're lagging hard.
Or just Discord.
Yeah, something. Like, you hear me and then you respond 10 seconds later, and then there's delay on YouTube and all that. Now she's frozen.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was gonna say I've had very much the same experience when it comes to YouTube in general. I just remember being like, I started out watching some of Monkey's videos, and I want to say I ended up getting turned on to Monkey from somebody else I was watching. He was on just a guest on one of their live streams, and he mentioned you at SDA, and he says, yeah, on the show that we do. And I was like, oh, so he has a live stream that he does. So I watched his videos, and I came over and started watching like the backlogs of like Lords of the Night, way back before it was even called Lords of the Night.
Mm-hmm.
And then one night I was just like, well, I think I've watched, like, I literally was just like, had him on my headphones and was just like cutting the yard or being at work, or just every free moment that I had y'all playing in my ear. And when one night I was just like, well, I guess I'm caught up, and they go live at like 8 my time, so I'll turn them on and see what happens. And then next thing I know, I'm watching y'all live, and then I decided to reach out and talk and chat, and this all happened over a period of a couple of months. One thing leads to another. I've fallen with the minions and end up becoming friends with them, and the rest is history.
And the minions were an after party thing from our show and all that. So it's just this. It's been a very, organic would probably be maybe an overused phrase, but it's just the way this community has grown, either in just viewers or viewers becoming YouTubers themselves, then becoming part of the routine. And I was just saying this last night when you were on the show. It's I make use in the thumbnails I make for the show. I make use of so many people's different avatars and things who've been on the show or friends of the show, that kind of thing. Because in my mind, like, you come on the show, you're a guest, you get a Lord name, you're part of the family, the community now. And I don't feel it's like as I don't think we should either as a show or as YouTubers feel so cloistered kind of thing. it's always felt like a community, because when I started doing this, there was I was friends with Bear and Tailed and Sinatra and Miss Misa and Porco Dio, even though you don't see Porco Dio around anymore, and World from Ferg, and
I remember Ferg.
so yeah, I mean, so well, some people have faded out over the time or gone to do other things. And even though we were all doing our own channels and everything, we'd be in like these little DM rooms with each other and saying hi and things, and giving mutual support, because we also kind of started around the same time. So it's always felt like much more of a community effort to me than it's ever felt like I was ever alone doing this. I've never felt solo. Like, even when I was first starting out, the only reason I kind of started was because Irate Bear, or Irate Alex now, but back then, he just randomly invited people onto a live stream of his from minds.com, and this is before I had a channel. And the experience of just going on there.
I did find out recently why you should never have Irate Bear and
God,
Drunkle in the same channel together.
We'll come back to that. Let him finish.
Yeah, Bear and Drunkle. Yeah, well, Drunkle by himself is usually too much to handle. But yeah, from the very beginning, it's always felt like a sort of friend group sort of effort, mutual support kind of thing. And I've always sort of, I guess, passively wanted that to continue by having sort of a network of friends, even if we're on doing different genres, even if we don't always watch each other's stuff all the time, that kind of thing. We all have a sort of a mutual connection of just trying to express ourselves and put out content and entertain people and stuff like that. And so that's why I'm hoping to cycle in more guests on the show and sort of reaffirm that, because I think that's important.
Yeah. By the way, my mom says hi, Tally.
Oh, hi, Mama Eve.
She made a special account just so she could talk and chat. It just says Mom of Chaos. So we had her on a couple of weeks ago, and well, she decided that she was gonna I think she said at least 3 of my siblings' names, and then what else did she do? Oh, she said a word that's a no-no for YouTube, and we had to go back and edit that out. That was funny. But no, we all had a good laugh. That was fun. But I do get what you mean by that sense of community. I feel like that's what the Minions is for me. It's like my I guess my home community, but I also feel like I'm a part of so many others, yours and Monkeys and all the YouTubers and stuff. And I don't really participate in a lot of them anymore as much as I did, because I do my own thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I still feel like I could go back over there and find those people, and it really doesn't feel like that's, like you said, that sense of celebrity. You have that idea that these people are just like somehow so much further up than you because they're on your TV screen.
Inaccessible.
But
yeah,
at the same time, it really kind of put in perspective for me how a lot of people that we put on pedestals and idolize, and even if they're like, movie stars and stuff, are just people,
Yeah, I mean, and it's sometimes it's not easy to sort of break down that barrier, because people, especially movie stars and TV stars and things, they're elevated to this almost like godlike status or something, or the weight of what they do is so very important and so very significant. And if you stop and think about it for a second, it's like, it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, yeah, okay, they got a great movie, or they said something really profound or whatever. It's like, I say profound things sometimes, that's no different. I just don't have zillions of viewers or zillions of fans or something.
Yeah.
Popularity does not necessarily elevate someone to greatness. It's what they do or who they are.
These are people who pretend to be somewhat. They basically play dress up for a living.
Well, yeah, and I mean there's a certain, depending on who we're talking about specifically, there's a certain admiration to be able to do that. I mean, watching an actor slip into a different role like a chameleon, where like from one movie to the next you almost can't recognize them because they've so become their character Like Gary Oldman.
Like Heath Ledger, he was a method actor, and in order to get into the roles, he would live as that person the entire time that they're filming.
Yeah, or like Daniel Day-Lewis.
Like people actually thought he was losing his mind when he did the Joker, because he would act like the Joker even when they weren't filming.
Yeah.
But that's how he was such a good actor. I mean, when he did other films, like was it Knight's Tale, I think it was?
Yeah.
He went round acting like a knight. And I'm not going to say he was slaying dragons or jousting or anything like that, but he
nothing fun.
Had the mannerisms. He kept those mannerisms in his day-to-day.
And
it made him a great actor. I will shut up now.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. One thing that I'm not a huge, not at least not as big as I used to be, a huge movie buff. I know you really are into some movies, Tally. And I know Scribe is into some movies pretty deep.
I watched the last movie I watched, like not like TV show or anything like that, like movie, was a B-list, like it wasn't even a B-list movie, and it was called Blood Vessel, and I quite enjoyed it.
Blood Thistle?
Vessel.
Blood Vessel. Oh.
You said it was a B movie?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, basically it's the whole idea is during the Second World War, is a life raft from a hospital ship that had been blown up.
Blood Vessel.
These people climbed up onto a Nazi ship that was sailing past them. They managed to get up onto a Nazi vessel, but there was no one on board except for a Romanian little girl.
And it's a ghost story.
And it turns out the entire crew was killed by a vampire.
Oh my god!
Well, you just ruined the story.
Was the little girl the vampire? Was the little girl the vampire?
The little girl was the vampire.
Of course.
Oh my god! The twist! Oh, the twist! And let me guess, they didn't reveal that to the very end.
Actually, no, they revealed that pretty early on.
Oh, okay.
They revealed that like halfway through.
So it's sort of like, I've seen a lot of these, like the Outpost plus, I don't know, Let the Right One In or something, sort of.
I guess so. It was very
the Let the Right One In is
like it was very contained. I mean, the crew, like the cast was like what, 7 actors, but the prosthetics on the daddy and the mummy vampire were incredible. But
I get a low budget movie.
It was a low budget movie, but the studio that did the movie, they specialized in special effects and sci-fi special effects and all that sort of thing. So I'm not surprised they managed to make the prosthetics on the faces of these adult vampires look so incredible.
Yeah, they might have reduced their cost to advertise to the movie their talents or something. But yeah, you get a small budget, you get a small cast, you don't have to pay a lot of money about, and have a relatively, a submarine or a ship or something is going to have very few sets you have to have set up, so you can do a whole movie. That's kind of where the movie Saw came from. The guys who created it started out by saying, okay, we want to make a movie, but we can really only afford 2 guys in a room. So how do we make a movie with 2 guys in a room? And as the story goes, at least, they just kind of naturally progressed towards a horror movie. It wasn't intended to be a horror movie, but the more that they thought about how can we make a movie that's with this limitation on it, the more it became over time the script turned into a horror movie, and that's where Saw came from. And of course, that's turned into a ridiculous franchise of its own. So sometimes it's just necessity is the mother of invention, or vice versa. Sometimes.
So do you think it's because horror movies are so easy to produce in that way? Like, it's easy to put 2 guys in a room, and if your writing is good enough, you can actually sell something scary with just 2 guys in a room.
Yeah, well, it depends. There's been what was it, My Dinner with Andre or whatever it's called. It's just 2 guys at a dinner table, like having a deep intellectual conversation for like an hour and a half. Or something like Mind Walk, where you've got like three or four characters who are just sort of interacting with each other and having different conversations about things. I mean, it really comes down to the strength of the writing or the concept. I mean, if you can do it without a lot of action or some other hook to it, like a horror movie, it's usually going to be it's got to be very cerebral. It's got to be very engaging. You have to have two very good actors or a very small ensemble. There's a movie called, I think it's called Man from Earth, and it's like 7 or 8 characters just at a cabin.
That's about how many people are in a blood vessel. It's like 7 or 8. And I've got to say, my favorite is probably the communist Russian. He like, not because he was just a badass. And I've got to say, I do recommend that movie. It's quite a good watch.
I'm trying to think of maybe some B horror.
What was that film with 7 or 8 people in a cabin?
Yeah, Man from Earth. It's all just people talking, and the story is there are a bunch of like teachers from a college or something, and one of their number is retiring and leaving all of a sudden, so they decide to have sort of a going away party, and the entire movie is. I mean, it might as well. I think it might have been, but it might as well have been a stage play because it all takes place in essentially one location with just people talking to each other. But it's so well written, and it reveals this mystery by increments between the different characters that it really becomes something more than just people talking to each other, and that takes a lot of skill. And it's not for everybody, but if you can pull it off, it can be really good. But in the case of Saw, since it became a horror movie as the more they talked about it, then it enters a different genre, and then it probably becomes easier to sell to a distribution company.
See, when you said 7 or 8 people in a cabin, I thought you were talking about that movie where Samuel L. Jackson plays a bounty hunter.
No, not the Hateful Eight. No.
Yeah.
Although that is that kind of movie, sort of, but Hateful Eight went on way too long. I thought it was okay. I wouldn't call it Tarantino's best. It was
very convoluted.
A bit. I mean, if you know Tarantino movies, it was digestible to a certain extent, but I wouldn't call it one of his best ones.
No. Like, I couldn't even remember what the name is. I just remember that Samuel L. Jackson was in it, and he was a bounty hunter, and everyone died. That's basically it.
So just Gatheus actually pouring up one that I was thinking of. He said, you need to play the video game Man of Medan. Yeah, I've seen that one. I'm not a big fan of the multiple choice type of things, especially since some of those choices seem very arbitrary, and then it's like, oh well, I need to do what I think is going to be the best thing, but then ends up getting like 12 people killed. Wait, huh? That should have worked. You know, like some of those games don't necessarily follow logical sense, and so I'm very kind of wary of actually playing those games. But I have seen Man of Medan. It looks really good. Very much like they find a derelict boat out in the middle of the ocean and try to figure out what's going on, you know. So, and it's just these tourists
another
come
movie that is very limited cast with that's in a isolated area was a Ghost Ship, and I quite enjoyed that movie.
Ghost Ship, really?
I quite enjoyed it, but I haven't. That might change if I'd watched it now, but the last time I watched it was like 15 years ago.
Gosh.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's Gabriel Byrne's in it, isn't he?
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, I think isn't that the one at the beginning where like a bunch of people get like sliced in half by a wire coming loose, kind of thing? Yeah. That movie was so bad. I'm sorry. It was it was bad. Haunted ship movies are like there was a movie called Virus, which was sort of like the same thing, except it was a sci-fi horror thing because the monster was technically a robot
virus.
deal. Yeah, but a robotic virus or something. And I'm trying to think of like a haunted ship movie that I actually kind
In
of
saying
liked.
that, when I was a kid, when Aragon first came out, I was sitting there like, wow, it's amazing.
Oh
And of course,
God.
the dragon did look incredible, but I watched it recently and it wasn't so good. But in saying that, I'd read the books before I watched the movie, and the books kind of spoiled it a little because I knew what was going to happen. But I loved the book so much that I was just like, wow, the dragon's even better than I imagined it. But now I watch it now and I'm just like, it's not. No, I prefer the book.
My girlfriend at the time was a big fan of the books, and so she dragged me to that thing. And within the first like 10 minutes, I'm like, this entire thing is stealing its plot from Star Wars. I mean, beat by beat by beat, you had the young kid and you've got the old man, master of the knights or whatever, and this, that, and the other. I was like, this is just Star Wars. And the movie was so like contrived and just very. And I've never read the books. I don't know about the
didn't
books.
Look incredible though. The CGI on that dragon was incredible.
I know that the books were written originally by some like 10 or 13-year-old or something, supposedly. And but yeah, the movie was just so boilerplate cliche to me that I walked out and I was just kind of like, well, I hope you liked it. And she's like, it was okay. The books are better. Like, I would have to hope so.
The books are way better. I did quite enjoy the books when I was a teenager.
Yeah, like deserted ship in the ocean type of thing. There's one that I watched years ago. Came out in like 2009. It was called Triangle. Where a group of friends.
Let me guess, it's about the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, but indirectly so. Like it takes place in the Bermuda Triangle, but it's not like they get lost necessarily so much as it is they come across this. They have like a boating accident and their boat turns over.
They're in the Bermuda Triangle and weird shit happens.
There's like a nearby cruise ship, but it's like completely abandoned and they have no idea what happened to anybody on board. And it's weird because the main character goes through so much, but she starts to realize that things are repeating, and it's very strange. It's a very strange way that this all plays out. And without spoiling too much, it was actually kind of a mind fuck. So
if you really think about it, there's only so much you can do if you're going to make a movie about a ship that's just drifting there.
Right.
And then you've got to come up with a reason why this ship is empty, and then you've got to come up with a reason for why.
Well, it becomes less about the ship and more about the people who are on the ship. Why are some of them there? What happened before they got on that boat? You know, things leading up to it start to come out about about them themselves, and so because as things start going awry, it stops becoming about why is this weird thing happening on the ship, but stuff about them starts coming out and they're going, wait a minute. It also depends
on how you're telling the story. Like,
sounds like Lost.
There's a really great movie from Christopher Nolan before he became all super famous with Batman and everything called Memento. If you just look at the story in a linear fashion, it's a relatively simple story. It's got a little bit of a novelty to it, but it's a simple story. However, the way he tells the story, given that the character can't remember anything more than about 5 minutes into the future, and then his entire memory resets, and then he tells the story backwards. It's like if you took all the scenes in the movie and cut them into chronological order, you'd have the movie. But he tells the story backwards from the end back to the beginning. So you have to learn in reverse how everything came to be. And it's a very simple mechanism.
Kind of like a detective trying to figure out a crime.
Well,
It is
from
the end, and they work backwards to what actually happened.
Yeah, and it is a detective story after a fashion. It's more of a neo-noir kind of thing. The character isn't. I mean, the character is. He basically acts as a detective, but he's not a policeman or anything. But you could have a abandoned ship movie but tell the entire story without having to rely on like ghosts or things like that. If you found a creative way to relay the information to the audience without talking down to them. That's the one thing that I hate about most movies, is that oftentimes the exposition or the lesson or the information is just so, like, it's just force fed to you, like the audience couldn't possibly figure it out for themselves. I like directors that actually respect the intelligence of the audience, so long as they've put things in such a way that it's understandable. I mean, it does take a certain amount of, I guess,
You have to
arrogance to think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to
think-
explain
I think
some
I
things,
prefer
but
books.
you don't have to.
And that's why I prefer books. You're less likely to have an author that just kind of spoon feeds you stuff.
Fair. But I was going to say that when it comes to movies like that, you definitely have to explain some things to the audience sometimes, but you don't, like you said, you don't want to overdo it, because when you over explain things, you risk insulting their intelligence. You risk just boring people, because it's like, yes,
You know
we
what? I've
understand
read
what's
a book
going on.
like
You
that.
don't have to tell us over and over and over again.
You know what? I read a book that was a bit like that once, and it was when I was on vacation with my family, and we were stuck inside because there was no, like, it was raining and we couldn't do anything. Everything was shut because of the rain. It was torrential. It was not fun. So I went through my mum's bookcase and I picked out a book. And I only actually read the first chapter of this book because it was just like, you know, when an author over explains and they just put way too much detail in, kind of like what I'm doing now.
Uh-huh. No, like some people would say like things like that about
like, it was because of how
Tolkien's
over
books.
because of how over and like over how much the author over explained everything. It just kind of dragged on. Like, do you really need to describe a pillar that much?
Right.
Sort of thing. Like, they weren't just like doing a description of a room so that you can get a visual picture. Like, he went into depth of like what the pillars were like and all that sort of thing in this room, and it was ridiculous. And I think the story was about an angel. I don't know.
You guys, one of those things, I guess you lost track because it wasn't sorry, I lost track there. No, you lost track because you got so bored from kind of going, what? Why?
Yeah,
We were just talking about a pillow now, and we spent like 3 pages describing a pillow. What were we talking about? What was the story again? You know,
like, I'm sure this room, like, the description of the room, it was a beautiful room, but like, do I really need all of this extra information?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much confidence do you have in your audience to put 2 and 2 together without having to? It's the show not tell deal,
Right.
and rarely can you have a movie that doesn't have any exposition. But there are ways to deliver it to the audience in ways that don't have to have it be like so ham-fisted.
A really big a movie that is very bad for the doing the tell instead of showing is Venom. That is a very big one with the
Never
show.
watched it. I was horrified when I found out who was doing that movie, how they were doing it, and how they were doing it without Spider-Man, because the entire Venom's origin story is one of the best origin stories, because you had 2 completely independent characters in the Suit and in Eddie Brock who were established long before they ever came together in the comic books. And as a consequence, you had 2 fully formed entities becoming one, and that really lent itself to the whole symbiotic relationship thing that is really at the heart of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, like, Eddie Brock, his entire career, he felt was destroyed by Spider-Man, because Eddie Brock was a photographer for the Daily Bugle, and Spider-Man via Peter Parker, like Eddie Brock made an accusation of who the serial killer on the loose was, and he thought he'd like scoop the entire world, but then Spider-Man captures the real serial killer. Eddie Brock's completely ruined. He goes to a church to kill himself because his life is over. He can't get his dignity back. And that just happens to be the same church where Spider-Man defeated the alien entity that was the suit several months prior. And the suit hears Eddie Brock's like hatred of Spider-Man and joins with him because it's just this great, interesting way that these two characters who would never have anything to do with each other just had this one moment of fate, comes together, becomes Spider-Man's worst villain ever. The one bad guy who knows everything about him, his secret identity, all his secrets, and can just destroy him. And then they make a movie without Spider-Man.
It's like that. It's like
now,
that meme.
See, if they made a movie like that, it would have been so much better.
I said, if it's like that meme, I am you but stronger. He was everything Spider-Man was, but better.
Yeah.
Stronger,
well, see,
faster,
here's the thing.
Had stronger webbing, you know.
Yeah. This happens with so many movies these days, is that they will serve up some big event without having earned it. Like imagine, and I know this is tough to imagine, but imagine if in the Spider-Man franchise, like the Sam Raimi movies, if they'd set up the alien costume by itself in one movie and done nothing else with it, and set up Eddie Brock at the same time as somebody else, but was just part of the Peter Parker storyline. And then the next movie, after you'd spent some time establishing these characters into the universe, then you have them come together and everything else. They want to like rush the payoff in these things so many times when it's like, you need to earn it. You need to spend some time with it. You need to bake it a while. You need to make people care and establish these people or these entities in your little universe a bit more before you have something that momentous happen. Otherwise, there's nothing to it. There's no meat to it.
Like you think about like rushing things. Like let's go to superhero TV shows and series. Like the Flash didn't get his costume and become the Flash and all that sort of thing until like right at the end of the first season. And then you've got series like Batwoman where she gets everything in episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh shit, what do we do now?
Yeah, well, superheroes. I mean, the best superhero TV show, as far as I'm concerned, is Daredevil so far. As far as like actually building the character up and really earning it and not giving everything all at once and showing the evolution of the character to get to the point. And you can do that with a TV show that you can't necessarily do with a movie. Well, unless you're very economical with your time in the movie and you have it all pay off at the end, kind of thing. But
I was also going to say that that's part of the reason why the Avengers movies were so good, because we'd spent so many years, so many movies building up to that point, to that moment.
Well, the whole thing with the like the Avengers universe was they start like Iron Man. He had to build the suit. He had to learn how to use the suit, and the number of times he flew into walls and hit his head and all that sort of thing because he was learning. They meet Peter Parker, a kid. Because when he's at his full power, he is OP as fuck. But they have him as a kid who is inexperienced and makes mistakes and kind of like just wants to kind of rush in and do things. They made him like that so they could develop his character. But then you come to Captain Marvel, she's just able to do everything in movie 1.
Yeah. And that's a big problem that I don't think Hollywood has quite gotten the message on, because they did the same thing much with like Rey from Star Wars. It's not that, there's a female protagonist. It's because she's not relatable. She gets handed everything right out the gate, and we don't feel like there's any growth or development.
So that, like Luke, she had to grow and develop.
Yeah.
Then she could have been she would have been as popular as Luke as a character.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is the interpretation of the word strong. When someone says that this is a strong, let's say, female character, they're not strong because they're invincible. They're strong because they can lift a heavy weight. There has to be a burden that they're carrying. There has to be an obstacle they're overcoming. You don't have a strong character because they can do everything. You have a strong character because they're confronted with something that's beyond them, and they find a way to deal with it. And Rey didn't have to do that, but Luke did.
Mm-hmm. Ripley is a very good example of that. She had this. She didn't have to do this, but she decided to. And she decided, like right at the end of the movie, when the place is about to blow up, she decided that she is going to burden herself to go back into that dangerous situation to save that child, when she could have just gone, not my problem.
You mean
But
Ripley
she decided,
from the Alien series?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Alien, the second movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I as someone who just finished Alien Isolation, I feel like it is definitely a good addition to the universe for one. Number two, I definitely got that sense of her daughter Amanda, who you play as, that very same kind of thing of like you're thrust into this situation with overwhelming odds. Like the station itself has turned against you, and there's something lurking in the ventilation shafts that you don't know what it is until you get to a certain point in the game, and then holy shit, it becomes everything. And it's just so much, and watching her struggle and fight and survive is the growth that she goes through.
Right. I mean, there has to be an evolution, and evolution requires struggle and challenge. And in Aliens, Ripley's going after Newt again. That really only makes an impact if you actually watch the extended version of Aliens, where you get to see how Ripley deals with the fact that she missed out on her daughter growing up. And so having that pseudo mother-daughter relationship with Newt really drives home her motivation for going after the kid, whereas in the original cut of Aliens, it's not made nearly as clear about what's going on there. But yeah, like Rey, Captain Marvel, they didn't grow into their power; they had their power. I mean, Luke gets his ass kicked all over the place in the first movie.
Yeah, he does.
And he really only really only shines right at the end with with the one thing that he could do before he had the Force, and that was fly the plane really.
These different skills that he had,
yeah.
like he was able to pilot that because he was a racing champion and he had these skill sets already.
No, that's Anakin. Maybe he wasn't a racing champion. Luke
Sorry.
was. He just but and he wasn't wiping people down with his lightsaber in that movie. I mean, at no point in New Hope does Luke kill anything with the lightsaber, because he's not a Jedi yet or anything.
Yeah.
He was the closest he got to that was where I remember when he first even got the lightsaber, instead of going out and killing things, he's just there doing what the younglings did with the ball, firing projectiles.
Yeah, he's just practicing because he didn't know how to use it yet.
Yeah.
He uses laser gun or his blaster,
and he still gets shot by that thing.
Yeah, and he ended up missing only a couple of stormtroopers, but yeah. And so it wasn't until the second movie they started using the lightsaber. So they earned it. They earned the fact that he grew into his skills. He didn't just pick up a lightsaber and suddenly know how to use it. He didn't suddenly just understand how to read minds or move things or everything else like Rey did. It was just that's what really stole any meaning from the character. At least Finn had something to overcome. He had to I'm not going to be a murderous stormtrooper.
Right.
I'm going to defy my masters and everything else. And many people have argued there should have been no Rey.
It then doesn't make sense to have him be okay with killing stormtroopers.
But that was the other thing too, is turning around knowing that he knows who those people are underneath the mask. There should have been some hesitancy there, but then he was just mowing them down and shit.
Well, I mean, when in a fighter, they look at him as a traitor. There was even that one point in the first movie, Force Awakens, when the one guy sees him and he just goes, "Traitor!" and shouts it at the top of his lungs, and he pulls out that stun baton and they have to fight, because he has the...
That was supposed to be Phasma. That was actually supposed to be Captain Phasma he's supposed to fight.
That was why they made such a big deal, because Phasma was two scenes in that movie.
Well, that was the thing, is that
it would have made so much more sense if the trilogy had followed Finn and his whole thing with he escaped being a stormtrooper and he wanted to liberate other people who had been forced to be stormtroopers. That would have been way more interesting.
Yeah. But what were you going to say, Scribe?
Oh, well, the scene was originally supposed to be Captain Phasma and Finn fight. But the rationale I heard was that the actress wasn't on the set that day, so they just put in this other no-name stormtrooper. I'm like, she's just a costume. She never takes her helmet off. Why would you need to have the actress on the set? That never made any sense to me. And that would have at least made some kind of sense hints later on when he faces her again in the movie is there was some kind of like rivalry or some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of antipathy there between the two characters. But by the time they get to the base at the end of the movie and he's like getting all up in her face, it doesn't have any impact. And if you'd added the fact that let's say Finn confronted other stormtroopers, but he wouldn't set his weapon at anything other than stun, because he knows who's underneath there. He knows they're probably slaves, effectively, just like him. Why would he want to kill them? If that had come into conflict with like Han Solo, who's shooting the stormtroopers because he just shoots them like nobody's business because he's been doing that for decades. That would have been an interesting character trait, but they never explored that either. This is why Rey should not have been in the...
I don't understand why, with all of the development that Han Solo did through the original movies and the prequels and all that sort of thing, why would they then make him revert back to the way he was initially? They completely undid all of the character development that he did. And I hate that.
Yeah,
because they didn't care. I mean, ultimately, the people in charge of Lucasfilm didn't care about the characters, didn't care about the lore, didn't care about any consistency or depth to anything.
Well, then you had, what was it, Rian Johnson for the second movie. He was basically just like, I'm going to do what I want for this movie. Yeah. And then when they can fix it in the next one if they want to. And it's like, bad.
Yeah, I mean, and even the Matrix trilogy had more planning than that. And after the first movie, there really wasn't a whole plan. But no, my love of Star Wars pretty much got shot in the foot as soon as Disney said, yeah, you know, all those books and movies and TV shows and comic books from before we owned the property, yeah, they're now all legends. It's all not canon anymore. And I was just like, excuse me?
Yeah, same. When they took all of the extended universe stuff that had been made canon, stuff that, you know, was up until that point was accepted as canon, and they just threw it out. I'm just like, well, there goes most of the things that I loved about Star Wars. Because while the movies made me fall in love with the universe, it was everything else that I really truly loved. You know. Yeah,
I had this like decades worth of like library in my head of different trivia and storylines and characters, and now they were just going to pick and choose which things they're going to bring back into canon. Like, oh, well, Grand Admiral Thrawn is in the universe. He's just not exactly as you remember him, and we're going to change everything about his origins and stuff. Like, why? Why? When you have a universe as huge and as rich as Star Wars, why couldn't you just jump to the franchise 1,000 years in the future and still make it a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and just allowed everybody to have their stuff and referred back to it if you wanted to, but ignore most of it if you wanted to. It's fine. Now they wanted to.
What really gets me about the new trilogy is, yeah, they decanonized everything, and I hate that because fuck you. That's why. But apparently all of the stuff that happened with Darth Vader and all that sort of thing, like, people are like, it's legend. Like, no one knows if it really happened. It's like, it happened 30 years ago. There are people still alive that are like, yeah, that shit happened. Find a 40-year-old that when they were 10, they'd remember that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it became, especially for us nerdy kids in the 80s and the 90s, it became our own mythology. You know, it was sort of like, you know how J.R.R. Tolkien basically wrote The Hobbit because Britain didn't really have its own mythology kind of thing, you know, its own folklore kind of deal. He was trying to like make up for something that culturally they kind of lacked. Star Wars, for me, was sort of
folklores and local myths and legends and all that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, but he said there wasn't any unifying sort of like sort of mythology like the Greeks had, or that the Romans had, and that kind of thing, or the Vikings had, and that kind of stuff.
Celtic mythology.
What about Celtic mythology?
Celtic mythology is British, like, that's all like old British stuff.
Sort of, but not really. Like, you tell the Celts that.
Oh. Anyway, like I say, that was Tolkien's, at least one of his inspirations for making it, is that he wanted to create a sort of unified mythology for his. I can't quote him exactly, but that's what I was told in the documentaries and things. And
Okay.
Star Wars for me and so many other people is like that's our mythology. Like being able to talk to somebody at length about the difference between Zuckuss and Forlom is like an inside joke that you just can't get with everybody. And so it became that sort of like little subculture kind of deal where I could tell someone about the tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina and wax philosophical on a Gand Huntsman and that kind of thing. And nobody would know the hell I'm talking about, but the one or two people that did, it was like, yeah. And we could share that sort of like crack with each other. And then one day to find out, none of that's really real. We're just going to like paint over it and replace it with this made to order sudden.
They're talking about how that's all now just legends, but in saying that's something that happened 30 years ago that people still remember is apparently a legend.
I was going to say that
I don't take anything the Disney people say about Star Wars seriously.
You mentioned the tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, and the first thing that popped to my mind was Brea and Cindy Tonica. I think I said their names right.
Yeah, the Tonica sisters.
The Tonica sisters. Yeah, they were literally like, as far as the movie was concerned, they were just the two Twilight dancers in the background, but they were actually supposed to be assassins, and somebody wrote a whole story about how they were there that day for an entirely different reason. And like they have that small cameo in the movies, but then they have their own story about what they were doing. It wasn't a fanfic. This was canon. This was accepted as part of the extended universe.
It started as a fanfic, but then someone made the people Lucasfilm made it canon.
This was somebody who was handed rights to be able to write something, and they said
no. Tales from Mos Eisley. Well, at least the stories from Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina were. They commissioned the different authors to take different background characters from Mos Eisley Cantina and officially for that anthology create their backstories. And that was one of the things that made Star Wars, at least at the time, so neat, is because they could do that. They could like say, okay, we want you to write a book about this, and the author would be given free rein. Like they watch the movies and say, has this character had an established storyline? And they'd go like, no. Can I make a thing? Like, sure, as long as it doesn't conflict with this other stuff. And every character had a story. Every background little thing ended up having some kind of deal to it. And they did have contests where they had like fans write in and say, I think they did for a while when the prequels were coming out. They'd put out a picture of a character in the background. They'd say, we're having a writing contest to create the backstory for this character. And somebody would write in, and the writers at Lucasfilm or whatever would evaluate them and then make that effectively canon for that tiny little background character. And there was this sort of sense you had a connection to the universe beyond just the movies, that you could look at something in the background or some little thing, and some writer would have gotten very creative with it and used it in a comic book. Like whole comic book series were based on a single background character in the first the Phantom Menace movie. Quinlan Voss. There was just like this one background character, this weird yellow stripe across the front of his face. And I think it was it Kevin J. Anderson or somebody? Anyway, they just said, I want to make a story about that guy. And he turned out to be one of the coolest like Jedi stories ever. And it was just this little background figure. And the expansiveness of that universe, the amount of love that people who are fans of the universe put in to create those things, just to be swiped aside by Disney. It was such an insult, not only to the fans, but to all the creative people, even the bad Star Wars. Like there is this book called Darksaber. There's one novel called Darksaber. It is a guilty pleasure because it's so bad. It's just the cheesiest Star Wars story ever. And yet, Star Wars,
you can feel the love that the author put into it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like even bad Star Wars was still Star Wars because you understood that you could sort of in your own mind's eye ignore that story happened because it's so silly. But there were elements to it that makes it a guilty pleasure. And there's a lot of novels like that. There's some really weak novels out there, but it was all done out of love. It was all done out of somebody trying to extend the story a little bit. And so you could, it's sort of like in your family. It's like, yeah, that family member, he's a jerk, but he's our jerk, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then for Disney to come along and say, none of this stuff is worthy of consideration. None of it. All of it is now to be ignored. We're going to tell you the true story.
And that's why I say, fuck you, when Disney says stuff like that isn't canon. It's just like, no, fuck you. That's canon. Your shit can fuck off.
You know what I
Yeah.
miss that was actually considered canon, but it's no longer, was part of the Dark Forces storyline. Like, it started with those games way back when, and ended up growing into Kyle Katarn being a major player
Mhm.
in the
Yep.
universe, and it's just gone now because Disney didn't wanted a blank slate to play with, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
fuck you guys.
There was so much they could have brought into the new trilogy. They could have like made Kyle Katarn a flesh and blood character in the films. Even though there was a flesh and blood character that played him in the cutscenes in the first or the second Dark Forces movie video games, but all the same. Yeah, there was and Kathleen Kennedy at one point said, we don't have any books or comic books to draw on for this stuff. And like, what?
Yeah,
It was the dumb.
Undoing
It was
said the same thing.
yeah, the dumbest thing.
You can tell she was never a fan was.
No, she didn't give a shit.
She
didn't give a shit. Yeah, no, I mean there was
just a paycheck to her.
Well, it was a power play for her. Her big thing was that she was now in charge of a massive worldwide platform with which she could push her ideological agenda, and that only came really to fruition with The Last Jedi, because the movie prior to that was forced to be something more commercial, more mainstream by the powers that be. But then when they let her loose on the second movie and let her have full range to pick the director, change the script, it turned it into an absolute, garbage fire. And yeah, the whole thing is just. I'm really hoping that they hand the reins of the whole thing over to Jon Favreau and the guy that did the Clone Wars series. I suddenly forget his name all of a sudden. And just kick Kathleen Kennedy to the curb.
Did you ever notice? Did you ever notice when they made the films, like when they were finished, everyone that was reviewing them said they were the most beautiful movies and like how incredible they looked and all that sort of thing. No one ever said how good the story was, though.
Or rarely, or if they did, it was in a very disingenuous way. Like, Rey's a strong character. This is the most action-packed ever. Like, anybody who's watched the movies would be like, this is a complete rehash of the first movie. I'm not
going to say it didn't look good, because the stuff that they did with like all of the spaceships and all that sort of thing, like, first of all, you wouldn't have that many spaceships packed together in that small space. But yeah, now it did look good. Like the scenery and all that sort of thing, it was incredible, but the storyline was convoluted and it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak. I word goodly.
And Mitch the Ripper says Dave Filoni. That's who it was. Dave Filoni over at Lucasfilm. Yeah, him and Jon Favreau should really be running the show over there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're the guys behind The Mandalorian, which is probably the best Star Wars live action since, honestly, the original trilogy. I mean, as far as like telling a Star Wars setting type story with a little bit of grit to it, a little bit. I mean, it's still Star Wars. I've always wanted them to focus on the non-Jedi aspects of the universe, and The Mandalorian does a pretty good job of that so far. The sort of underworld stuff.
I really enjoyed The Mandalorian. I'm quite looking forward to the second season.
That's one of the things, and one of the things I'm actually glad that they kept was the Knights of the Old Republic universe, like thousands of years before the events that happened in the Star Wars movies.
Well, to some extent or another, there's a lot of stuff tied up in the KOTOR game that has now been made not canon because of things implied by it. But but through the Clone Wars cartoon show and then Rebels and now with The Mandalorian, they're gradually clawing back a lot of that lore that was established with like the war between the Mandalorians and the Jedi and things like that. So stuff that had been retconned out of existence, or at least off into Never Neverland, they've sort of said, yeah, but we're going to bring it back because it's our thing. Like, okay.
Yeah, because fuck you, that's why.
Mustafa said, I never knew I wanted a Western set in Star Wars until I watched it. Yeah, basically.
Well, I mean, Star Wars was kind of a Western after a fashion. I've always wanted there to be, because after that video game that never came to be, Star Wars 1313, where it was all set in the Undercity of. Yeah, it was all set in the Undercity of Coruscant with just bounty hunters and criminals and things. And I always thought that the criminal underbelly aspect of Star Wars would make a great series all by itself.
Well, they tried
just
to
like a
do
crime
that
story.
with Solo, and it failed miserably.
Yeah.
So Solo was such a unnecessary. Nobody needed to know Han Solo's origins. All the implications and the couple of books that already existed were more than enough. There was no need to do a movie. If they really need to expand the universe, not keep going backwards and telling us stuff we already know. Like they're going to do this Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Like why? Why? He was sitting out in the desert for 20 years watching over Luke. Any adventures he had to have been so low key and so close to the vest because he had to keep the secret. The whole thing was to keep a secret. He's supposed to keep a low profile. Why would there be a Obi-Wan series? What possible adventures could he have that would make any sense? But they're going to do it because it's Obi-Wan. Why would you want to? Yeah, don't give us anything new.
He changed his name and he stayed in one place just so that he could watch over Luke alongside the people that Luke came to know as his parents and keep that secret. And yeah, you're right. He was supposed to be so low profile. Where would he possibly go? It's like, what movie or series could you make from that? A guy sitting in a hut, just like, shh. Is that the series?
I assume that. I don't know. Who knows?
Now, if they want to do an Obi-Wan series of before all of that happened, maybe you could get away with doing that. But
it's going to be him on Tatooine. It doesn't make any sense otherwise because we watched Obi-Wan do everything in the prequel movies up until he had to leave. So since they're not going to get Liam Neeson back to show Obi-Wan when he's young, and Ewan McGregor's no spring chicken anymore, it's going to have to be Obi-Wan on Tatooine. So anyway,
yep. Real quick, because we are about to end up here soon. I think you said you only had an hour and a half anyway. So
yep, I got a couple things I got to take care of before showtime tonight.
So I did want to say, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the chat now. Let us know when we hit a break in our conversation. Monkey says, "How did I miss this? Because you don't listen, Monk. I asked him last night after Lords of the Night."
Yeah, I was there. I heard it. Brought up. And hello, Undoomed. Hello, Monkey. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Hope everybody's doing good today.
You think Undoomed watches this?
Well, he was in the chat for quite a while.
Yeah, he was literally in the chat a second ago.
Yeah, he was in the chat saying hi to people. Do you not pay attention to chat?
No, she's not looking.
I was paying
on your own show.
I was paying attention to the conversation.
I can multitask and stare at a screen while I'm talking.
Scribe, I am the you of our channel, okay? I'm the one who does all the work, the organization. I make sure we stay on format. Tally just sits there and looks pretty. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, Tally contributes in her own way to the show behind the scenes.
She's the arm candy window dressing. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's me. I'm the window dressing. Let's be honest.
Now, see now. Okay, Tally, look at the chat. There he is. He's right there.
Hi.
Hi.
He's right there. He's like, I'm here.
Wait, he's watching us? Why?
Tally's like,
wow.
I'm not dressed for this.
Don't undersell yourself or anything. Jeez.
No, I was just it is. It's funny. It's funny that he popped in because we were literally just having that conversation about how, at the beginning when we were talking about watching some of these people on YouTube and getting to actually meet them and find out they're just normal people having conversations, and it just so happens like hundreds of thousands of people like to also watch their conversations. So
Roy Ike says, what would be a good start into the Star Wars world? Honestly, just watch the original movies, the episode 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And after that,
I mean, the prequels, they weren't great movies, but they
yeah. I mean,
but they did build on the universe. That was the whole point of the prequels. The prequels were that they were created to build more lore into the movies.
The credit I will give the prequels that many people have is at least he was trying to do something different. They were not exact copies of the original 3 movies. They were trying to tell a different kind of story. Not very successfully in places, mostly.
Well, the whole point of the prequels was the fact that the empire rose because of all the red tape and the bureaucracy that was
no, the
because
point of
of
the
the
point.
over-bloated government that was running the galaxy.
No, the point of the prequels was for Industrial Light and Magic to show off the special effects they could do to market those to other studios. It was all just done basically to wrap around. I mean, yes, there's a lot of other work done into it, but if you watch, there's some great documentaries on the episode 1 DVD set behind the scenes where Lucas is talking about stuff, and in an early one where they're doing pre-production, he puts in front of him like, okay, I want this droid army, this, and this, and this, because if we can pull this off, everyone else is going to want us to pull it off for them too. And I was like, well, at least George is being honest about his motivations for why he's doing this. This is all one big sales pitch to other studios for the awesome might of Industrial Light and Magic. So,
okay, I'm wrong.
Monkey has a question for you, Scribe.
Yes, where's Monkey?
It says, Monkey, it says, Scribe, I have a question. With your love of children, will you ever consider adoption if you don't find that special someone?
I missed you completely.
Undoom's not wrong, though. The prequels are better than the sequels.
Yes.
You're going to have to repeat it again, Eve. I didn't hear you.
Sorry, Eve.
He says, Scribe, I have a question. With your love of children, will you ever consider adoption if you don't find that special someone? I have a feeling he's trolling you.
Yeah, it's probably it's. I mean, he usually is, but I usually take such questions seriously because why not? No, I don't know. I in my mind is the model of my parents. What happened with my parents was they got married, and they tried to have children and had 3 miscarriages over the course of 10 years. And so they were married and went through all that struggle and growing up with each other for a decade before I came along. And I was not I was not expected in the sense that they sort of thought, if it doesn't work this time, we're kind of going to give up. And then I came along, and the fact that my parents went through all that and had such a solid relationship together before they had kids, that they were tested as a couple in life and struggle.
Yeah.
In my mind, I don't think I'd be ready for a kid, period, unless I'm partnered with somebody who I'd want to raise a kid with. Even if that meant like the circumstances where, let's say we actually couldn't have kids. I wouldn't want to adopt a kid until I had a solid foundation for that child. And I think as maybe some people might think of it as limiting or something, and no insult to single parents or anything, but in my mind's eye, a solid foundation is a mother and father.
You're not
to begin
wrong.
with, at least.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Kids do they do better when they've got a mother and a father.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that's very much the situation I found myself in with my ex, and one of the reasons why we ended up getting divorced was she was just insistent that, okay, we're married now, let's have kids. And I'm just like, no, let's get ourselves stable. Let's figure out this marriage thing first and figure out, find a stable place for ourselves, both in our relationship and financially before we start bringing a third person into the equation, because that's literally what you're doing. It's not just something that's fun. It's not just, it's not going to make all of your problems go away at all. It's going to actually make things more complicated.
It makes problems worse.
Yeah.
I've seen so many couples that have been like, we've got all of these issues in our relationship. In order to fix these issues, let's have a baby. It's just like, no, don't do that. It just makes it harder.
A baby should not be a relationship band-aid. That's not how it's supposed to work.
No.
Or at least I should say it's not a healthy way to look at it.
No, but also these people, they think if they have a baby, they're magically gonna fix all of their issues in their relationships. But what they don't realize is that kids are very hard work, and it makes puts more stress on a relationship, and then they end up breaking up, and now they hate each other and they can't raise the kid together.
Yeah,
because
so like I said,
they just want to snide each other.
Yeah, and that's why I say the model that my parents ended up becoming for me is sort of my ideal scenario. I'm not necessarily saying that I have to go through 3 miscarriages in a decade with this person necessarily to know that I have a solid relationship. But if you don't have a solid relationship, foundation on which to build on, I don't think a kid is a wise decision. So that'd be my answer to Monkey. All by myself, no. Certainly would want to have a partner in it, because I think the other having a kid that I've always thought of is, and this probably applied more when I was younger, is I wouldn't want to have a kid until I felt like I had lived enough life to have something to pass on to the kid. Because having a kid too young, I mean, you're never ready for a kid, obviously, but I think one of those things that I want to be able to have in my on my checklist, if I have to have a checklist, is establishing a successful and long-term relationship with another person. I think that would eventually teach me a lot about myself and about where I am in the world and how I fit, in order to have that knowledge to pass on to a kid. Because so far my relationships have been, kind of disappointing. Nothing tragic, thankfully, and nothing, I guess, outright horrible, but certainly not fun. I've been on the short end of the stick in most instances, so yeah, still trying to figure that part out.
Well, you're smart in that. I mean, I had mine at 22, and that was too young.
Peter Silak Hades 313 asks, "What would you name your daughter, Scribe? Pepper or Jack?" Ha 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 ha. Now, I already have a name in mind. It's a name I made up for a story many years ago. Of course, the child's mother would have to obviously approve, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, because I don't want to because it's very unique. It's very special. I don't want anybody copying me. Yeah. But yeah, I have an idea.
That's good.
I had a boy. If my little one was a girl, I was going to call him Anelia.
If I had a boy, it'd be Mortimer. I don't care. I just override my wife. Yeah, it'd be Mortimer. It's like, what? Why am I? Nobody calls their kid Mortimer anymore. So it's going to be unique.
I wanted a name that was a real name. Like, you can look for a baby
There's a real name.
Yeah, Mortimer is in a baby name book. I'll give you that. I wanted a name that was it was a real name. So if you opened a baby name book, it would be in there. So it wasn't something stupid like Apple.
I didn't expect to spend so much time on the actual question of, would you have a kid? That actually got deep.
I
can't let Monkey's jokey nature turn into a joke. I have to make it serious. I have to make it my own. So I can't let him win by making light of something that I take seriously. So I've owned that question. So go to hell, Monkey.
He said he was actually serious. He thinks that you would spoil a kid more than he does his grandkids. So.
Oh Lord, and I talked about this before. One of my sort of, it's nothing I get nasty about. It's the luck of the draw kind of thing. My sister decided she didn't want to have kids, so she had her tubes tied and everything very early on, and as a consequence, I'll never be an uncle. And I always wanted to be the guy who spoiled my niece and or nephews and this kind of thing. And I'll never have that opportunity. And it was just about a month ago or so that Satsu on the air told me that for all intents and purposes, I was Squeedus's uncle.
Oh.
And my heart just about broke a couple of pieces there, because I was just like, I came out of the blue. I was just like, oh man. And I told my mother this story. I said, so on the show the other night, Satsu said that, all things considered, I'm essentially Aaliyah's uncle. And the first thing my mom said was, I want pictures of my grandniece. And I was like, okay, Mom, I'll do it. And so I got a couple of cute pictures and sent them off.
She is a little cutie. She is a little cutie.
Oh yeah, no, she's absolutely adorable. But guys, I'm sorry, I gotta split. I got some things I gotta get taken care of tonight before
we're done here now anyway.
Yeah, we were about to wrap up anyways. So I was gonna say thank you so much for being on with us, Scribe. If you guys,
I really appreciate it.
Where can real quick before you go, where can people find you?
So I am on Twitter at scribe_light. On YouTube, just look up Scribe Light, 2 words, and you'll see a little picture of a guy standing on a mountain, and that's me.
Same face.
Otherwise, Yeah, same little face that you see there. Nice piece of fan art, though a lot of people mistake it for the original, which is a compliment to the artist. Otherwise, I do a every other day show, mostly now, live stream. Ever since the lockdown happened, I've been doing live streams because I have to work from home at my computer, and the process of actually taking apart and editing and assembling scripted videos has become a slog, let's say, after doing a full day's worth of work. And so sitting back and relaxing with something like a live stream has been much more therapeutic. And I chose mainly a series I call TED Excellence, where I take a look at TEDx talks and TED Talks of various subject matter and just dive into them and see if they convince me of something. And oftentimes they don't. And then Sundays, I generally...
It is amusing to watch him get more and more frustrated as it goes on.
Oh, yeah. No, I really try to understand, and oftentimes understanding comes with insanity. And then Sundays, I kind of do usually something or nothing, depending. And then Tuesdays and Fridays, I host the Lords of the Night talk show with myself, Ranting Monkey, and Satsu 2 Cents at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And tonight, we'll be on Ranting Monkey's channel at those times, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Sunday we take off, but every other day of the week we are on and talking about the events of the day and stories that you guys send and all that good stuff. So that's where I'll be. That's where I am. And guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming and joining us. I'm really
we
glad we actually
appreciate
finally
it.
got to get you on, because I've been trying to do that for a minute now. So
Yeah,
Yeah, we really have.
I'm so bogged down with myself with work and then streams every day. Sometimes I just gotta take a breather, but I have no problem scheduling something with you guys and everybody else in the community.
I was gonna say, A, Monkey, put your channel link in the chat there so people can go over there and join y'all tonight. B, and if you want to see any of Scribe's links, they're all in the description down below. So, and with that, thank you so much for being on with us, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me.
And that's gonna do it for myself and Tally tonight, guys. Oh wait, we almost forgot.
Yeah.
To do
What
the
did
thing.
we forget?
The thing.
oh, this thing.
Lower, because they can't see. There, that's close
What?
enough.
Wait,
Close enough.
where is my? I'm not looking.
Just real
there.
low. There you
There.
go. There you go. All right. Anyways, guys,
we are like mentally, we're like 12.
we are. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Thank you to our wonderful guests for being on. Thank you to my lovely co-host Tally, and we will catch you all next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lay back, relax, enjoy it all. Saturday night, it's time to say no more. S&M with Tally and KRC. Come pleasure or pain, welcome to the stream.